like, so if you're going by that, why do you think that like a mother is responsible for a rape baby?
For a rape baby. My opinions on rape are a bit iffy. I don't. That's hard to. It's hard to talk about rape because it's not like something I preconceively thought about in my moral standings. My moral standings are more around the lines of normal sex and intercourse coming to dependency.
Okay, what if a person takes every like possible precaution and contraceptive and it still like happens that they become pregnant? At that point, when they made efforts to like literally prevent the thing from happening, and it happens, does it even matter?
Do you believe that if you're making efforts, you're still acknowledging the chance that it may still happen?
I do.
Huh? So therefore, that like you're acknowledging the chance, you still know there's a chance of.
I mean, depending, right? Like depending on how much contraceptives you're using. Like for instance, right? If you use a condom, yeah, you're acknowledging that it could happen, right? There's a 90% chance that it won't, but there's a 10% chance it will. Now, if you're using birth control, like condoms, and like some other shit like semen-killing lube, right? Like, if you're using all of that, that's like, in someone's head, that's like a nigh impossible fucking chance that this will happen. And I hold on, James, Jesus Christ. So that's like a nigh impossible thing to happen, right? And this thing still happens. The person is not responsible.
I disagree because nigh impossible would still provide the idea of possibility. So if you think something's nigh impossible,
when you walk outside, James, when you walk outside and you get hit by a car, it's not actually impossible, but it is nigh impossible based on your experience in the past.
I think
that you don't get mowed down by a truck.
I think this is analogous.
I think it is very analogous because you're saying simply because, right? I'm about to tell you, simply because, right? Something is nigh impossible. However, it is still. If someone types in fucking announcements, I swear to God, get off that shit immediately, right? But if you're saying that, oh, this is nigh impossible, but it could still happen, so therefore the person who was invested in the causal chain is still technically responsible. Right?
But the difference is that you're
hold on. Oh my God. Sorry. I'm still going. So basically, you're saying that if I walk outside, I chose to do that, and therefore in the causal chain of responsibility, I am responsible for getting run over. That doesn't work.
Here's the thing. Okay, so the thing about this that I view, and the way I view in this, is that the reason why I believe this is disanalogous because there is two people committing a mutual act to have intercourse and therefore running this risk, even if it is.
We're not talking about. Hold on. We're also talking about two people here. The person in the car driving, who also accepts the risk that they might run over someone, and the person. And this is why this is directly analogous. The person who runs the risk driving that they might run over someone, and the person who leaves their house that day thinking that they might be run over. Now, these people are both taking risks on a thing they think is nigh impossible, however, is very possible, right? And if it happens, who is responsible?
Here's your thing here. This is a mutual agreement. This is a separate agreement that's aimed to coincide.
They both, but that doesn't matter. They both agree to the nigh impossible thing.
Still not analogous.
Yes, it is. They both agree to the mutual agreement. Hold on. Do you think analogous means the exact same situation?
They have to be the exact same. They have to have mutual functions, and this is a mutual function.
Okay, they have mutual function.
It's a key function. It's a key function. It's missing.
No, there isn't. No, first of all, when you say a key function, no. When you say a key function, you just mean directly analogous now. You just mean the exact same. Because it doesn't have to be the exact same in every single fucking scenario. Like, for instance, they both are informed of the situations. They're both da-da-da-da-da, right? And if you want to be technical about it, technically, these people aren't agreeing to anything together, right?
Infamous. I have a question for you. All right, so this is pretty simple. Do you believe mutual agreement is a big part of sexual intercourse? Or a key function of sexual intercourse?
I think consent is the biggest part.
Which is mutual agreement.
That's not true.
Yeah, it is. It's two parties mutually agreeing to have intercourse.
No, consent on both prongs isn't mutual agreement because you're not doing the same thing to each other.
It's mutual agreement to do an act together. That is what mutual agreement means.
You're not doing a singular act.
Sex
Both
would be the
acting
act,
differently.
This sex is the mutual act, and there's mutual agreement. They're both consenting to have sex with one another. That's
Even if
mutual
I was to take that definition you're using, right? Even if I was, still wouldn't be disanalogous because the car crash is one act. Like it's still not disanalogous. The only disanalogy you've partaken in and even tried to posit, right, was the one that you said, which was, oh, well, they didn't agree to it together. That's not true. We have a social contract in our society, whereas if you leave the house, you have the responsibility of the road, right? Drivers have that. Drivers take tests on this. Now, if we have a person walking in the street, they also take. No, it's not, because they live in the same society.
So, just because, for example, I'll present you an example here.
How is it separate? A society needs mutual agreements to be a society.
Okay, that's not. No, they need separate agreements. They need agreements to a place, but
that's not true. That's not true. If we're talking, that is not true. That is not true. If you are in a society, inherently mutually agree with the rules of the road. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in an agreement or live in that society. Now, if you don't live in or agree with this society, then that means you're essentially confirming this to rape.
Towards one thing. That's separate agreements towards one thing. That's the difference.
Okay, what do you mean that's separate agreements? Do you mean they didn't get in the mommy and daddy room and fucking say that they were going to kill each other?
No,
is that what you mean?
That's not what I mean. They didn't agree to each other. They agreed to an overarching act. So that's different.
Like sex.
No, sex is agreeing with one another. That's mutual agreements to one thing.
Jesus Christ! You're agreeing to the overall act, James.
Do you think agreeing to sex is the same thing as agreeing to...
Hold on, no, I'm not letting you get off of this, James. The overarching act is sex.
No, you're agreeing to a third party.
That's the analogy.
No, but you're agreeing to a third party rule of act.
Who's the third party, James?
The government. That's our law.
The government.
That's a third party, isn't it?
Okay, and the third party in sex is?
Nothing. They just agree.
Go on, I could... Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay.
Why
do you... Okay,
we're not talking about rape here. That's the thing. We're not talking about rape. So the government...
Okay, yeah, exactly. Why aren't we talking about rape, James?
Why would we be talking about rape?
Because the law is a thing, right? Because the law is a thing, right? Or your moral stand ground. That's the third party.
Here. We'll leave it here because we're getting circular. I will just give my conclusion as to why I think this is disanalogous. You can give your conclusion on why you think it's analogous, and we'll move on. Seem fair? Since we're on 30 minutes.
Alright.
I think this is disanalogous because this is not the road thing is two separate people agreeing to an act of government, and that is the road rules that they agree on. This is not two people agreeing to a mutual party act together with their two agreements to each other. That is the difference between sex and going out on the road.
Alright. So I think it's analogous mainly because of one argument that personally, right, I've seen James use called the social contract, right? The social contract is a assumed agreement to a third party. So not a third party. Well, yes, a third party, but also to each other, like to people around you, your neighbor, everyone you know in your society, in which you would agree that there's the risk of an act happening if you take a certain action in the society. For instance, getting run over, kicking a dog by accident, falling over, getting shot. All these things could happen, right? But you wouldn't be held responsible for any of these acts happening if you just left your house. In the same way, you wouldn't be held responsible if you took precautions, because you obviously take precautions to not get, ran the fuck over, right? But you don't stay in your house all day, right? Just to not get run over. The same way that you take precautions to not get a woman pregnant, but you don't not have sex, right? And this is directly analogous. The only thing that he pointed out was that there was a third party and that there was a first party. That's not the thing that's necessarily the problem here. The direct problem here is where the responsibility lies. The decision is still made by two people, just because it's not directly to each other, and even arguably it is, right, in a scenario I could make. But even if it's not, it doesn't matter. That's not the problem at hand, right? The only thing he pointed out was an irrelevant, disanalogous like situation that I didn't even need to posit. It was like, oh, there's this difference. It's like, yes, there is a difference in analogies. That's fine. Analogies are different. They're comparisons. They're not actual like copies of like the fucking, not carbon copies, silicone copies of the original like plan or the original topic.
You done with that? Can we move on?
Yeah.
I'm going to present my symmetry breaker, which is the symmetry breaker I determine for responsibilities, conditions, conjunctions of the three following. The things are: partook in forcing another being to be in a state of dependence of you. Dependency is already instated, and knowledge of the current probability of forcing another being to be dependent on you. Are you fine with these three for a symmetry breaker?
Yep.
All right, that's fine. So I just
The car analogy follows that.
Huh? So therefore, do you believe
The car analogy follows that. So I have no problem with those three because it would still fall under the car analogy, and I don't think that you would say that either one of them are responsible in that.
I believe,
or at least the person walking outside that day. Like the act of walking outside doesn't make them responsible for instance, like possibly dying, right?
All right, my question for you: how does the car analogy work in partook in forcing another being to be in a state of dependence of you?
Oh, simply. So if you walk into the middle of the road, right, you give people who are driving towards you power over your life.
The power of your life, what? And that provides dependency? Like, what do you mean? How does that provide dependency? And the dependency, also, I said the dependency is already instated, meaning it's already happened. So, like, for example, if you have sex and the seed is already in you, then this dependency is already happened. It's already been stated. So in realism, my argument there would just be: if you have no problems, do you have any problem with my moral standings? Did I lag out? Did I lag out just then? Or am I tripping?
No.
He's not smart. I just like his sexy Australian voice. Oh, shit. Oh, shit.
I'm back.
Do you want me to restate what I just said?
Yeah, I reset what you said because I just got an ice cream.
I said that the reason why I don't believe these rules are stated and doesn't believe your analogy follows within the symmetry breaker is because of dependency is already instated, which in your situation isn't. It doesn't already happen.
What do you mean dependency is already stated? Because by the social contract it is. I already stated about the social contract.
For example,
what you're stating right now is social responsibility.
You gotta let me have a sentence. What I'm saying is very simple, is that when you have sex and the seed's already been fertilized...
I know, that's why I can defeat it.
Dependency has already happened. When a car is coming at you, dependency hasn't already happened. Therefore...
No, that's not what we're talking about. I'm not talking about when the car is coming at you. The overarching social structure of your society has already put you in agreement.
Of what?
Of participating in your society.
Then that is relevant how in this argument?
That's the agreement. You run the risk of getting run over in this society.
Okay, and we've already went over why I think that's disanalogous. Like, I've already presented my argument.
I mean, then we're going to have to get back to the point. If you think it's disanalogous, that's your fault.
I've already explained why it's disanalogous.
I was willing to argue it. I already explained why it wasn't.
Alright, so we both presented our arguments. All right. So therefore, within my symmetry breaker, all I'm saying is that if you've partook in forcing, so sex is partook in forcing another to be dependent on you, potentially if you have gotten them pregnant, and then dependence is
You're not
always
forcing them to be dependent on you. That's like saying I'm dependent.
how's that not
That's like
forcing
saying,
them?
hold on. If you're forcing them, that implies they're dependent upon you. How can you make someone that's dependent upon you, you dependent upon them?
Huh? When did I say that?
Because you're saying you're forcing them to force someone to do something means they have to be in some way dependent to you.
You're forcing them. Well, my question to you is infamous. Does a baby have a choice?
No way, James. Answer that question. Answer that
What's the
question.
question? Rephrase it for me so I can understand what you're trying to ask me.
You're saying that they're forcing them to do this act of being dependent, right? Of
Yeah,
them being dependent upon them, right?
Sex and pregnancy
Okay,
forces the
so
child
how the fuck are you supposed to make someone dependent upon someone else if to make them do that they're dependent upon you? That doesn't even define itself right. That doesn't
What do
even
you
make
mean?
sense.
What are you trying to argue?
I've said it 3 times now. Your definition
Yeah, so you're trying
for
to
this
argue that
one
they're
particular
forcing.
rule doesn't make sense because what you've
Why?
said is you make them or force them to be dependent. But that
Yeah, you
implies that they're
force the
not. That
sperm into
implies.
dependence by
That
fertilizing
implies.
it.
Oh my fucking god, James.
Mm.
That implies, right, that they're dependent upon you, and you're making you dependent upon them. But that's
No,
just an infinite fucking feedback loop. Because
that's
you
not
can't
what.
make
That's
them
not
do
what I'm saying
something.
at all.
You can't make them do something unless they're dependent upon you.
That's not what
But
I'm
you
saying.
can't make
That's
them
not necessarily
depend. You
true.
can't make
That's
them.
not necessarily
Hold
true at
on,
all.
hold on. You can't make them be depend. Have you dependent on them because you're already. They're dependent to you. It's an
No,
infinite
forcing
feedback
someone
loop.
to
You
do
can't
something.
do that.
No. Forcing someone to do something doesn't apply automatic dependence. They have been forced into dependence
How do you
because
force someone to do something without them being dependent upon an attribute of you?
dependent on an attribute. What do you mean?
How do I force someone to do anything without them being somewhat dependent upon me?
If I yell at you until you shut up, I forced you to shut up, correct?
Because I'm dependent upon the fact that you were yelling at me.
No, you're not. You're not dependent on me
Am I
enough to yell at me.
subjugated to the part where you're yelling at me?
Define subjugated.
Okay. Was the cause for me shutting up you yelling at me?
Yes. Is it called
Okay, yeah.
dependence?
So you delegated me to stop talking.
I delegate. Does it? Wait, let me get the definition of dependence before I go fucking getting on a rant about this, so I know what I'm actually saying.
Because what you're basically saying is that you're making me do a thing, and that doesn't mean that you have some control over me. But yes, it does. To make me do something, you have to have some control over me.
Then again, do you believe that? Do you believe that like a sperm is in the male's body, and the sperm sits independent of the male's body?
Independent? No.
Yeah, independence, not independent. Like,
Oh, independence of the male body? For how long?
I'm not asking you how long. I'm just asking you if this is the case.
Well, I mean, that's the need, right? Like, how long are you talking?
I'm saying when the sperm sits in the person's ball sack, and then when they have sex, the sperm out produces into the uterus, and
They
then
don't even need to do that.
What?
For to get pregnant. They don't even need to do that.
I'm just explaining how sex works.
I know. I'm saying in sex you don't even need to do that. I'm not saying that she's going to have like pan fucking spermia.
I'm just saying that is how a child gets impregnated, how a woman gets impregnated during sex. It is by
Impregnated.
sperm. Impregnated. I'm sorry. It's also 10 o'clock. I gotta get to bed soon. But it has entered into the woman's vagina and has then formed into the egg to be fertilized. So, therefore,
I don't even think that's how that works, but okay.
Oh my god, I'm trying to explain this in the least technical terms as possible. Anyway, back to the point at hand. All I'm saying there is that how the basic notion of getting pregnant works, and therefore when that has become an egg then and being fertilized, therefore they are now dependent. They are now forced into dependence in the mother's body. Correct?
Okay.
Okay, wait, sorry, my fucking shit's loud. Can you talk again?
I mean, okay. Like, first of
loud.
all, I would ask, do you think that things without agency can have dependence?
Infamous. Turn your mic down. That shit's loud as hell. Your mic is just raised for no reason. Oh my god. Or I'm tripping on
This
my.
is better.
Yeah, that's way better. All right. So back to the point at hand. All I'm saying. Continue. You actually were talking.
Yeah. Do you think that things without agency can have dependency?
What do you
Like,
mean?
are we using a
Agency?
materialist? Are we using like a materialist like a definition of the word dependence?
What do you define by agency?
Well, I'm asking under your definition. Like, I'm asking if do you consider things that have agency
I'm
only
asking you
those
to
have
define
dependency in the
agency.
times? Are you saying that under your worldview, the way you're using dependency is with or without agency?
I'm asking you to define agency. Like I don't know what the word.
Well, James, I'm so sorry if you don't take into account agency in your fucking
Actually,
definition. You should have done that.
Maybe I use it under a different word.
Okay, what the fuck is the word then? Consciousness?
Oh, there's a consciousness. No, I don't believe consciousness is the meaning
nFAMOUS, don't you gotta go
necessarily.
now?
Anyway, more the point.
I
The
got
act
5
at
minutes.
hand. All right, so the act at hand. See, the reason why I don't believe you necessarily need consciousness is because I believe in two factors: responsibility and the potential for sentience. These are two different things.
So rocks can have responsibility.
Huh? What do you mean?
You said that rocks can have responsibility.
No, that's not what I said. When did I say
Give
that?
those two definitions again.
I said the potential for sentience in regard to potentially or
The
eventuality,
second one.
huh? And views of responsibility on the act of the person who put it into dependency.
Okay, see, a rock doesn't have that first thing, but by claiming the rock doesn't have the first thing, you mean that the rock has the second thing?
What do you mean? What part are you saying?
So the rock has responsibility, but has no
Why does a,
sentience?
why does a rock have responsibility? What?
What the fuck?
What do you say? You brought up a rock, not me. I feel like you're just memeing now. Like,
I need to go to class now.
all right.
Alright, before I go, who won?